Hi, my name is Donna, and I want to thank you for joining Ike Education to celebrate Earth Day. In this lesson, we're going to be checking out how American people, including students just like you, planted victory gardens to help win World War II. Have any of you been to Abilene, Kansas before? Give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Well, Abilene's a pretty special place. It's a very small community, and it was the hometown to Dwight David Eisenhower when he was a young boy. He would grow up to be a 5-star general, which is the highest rank you can get, as the Supreme Allied Commander of the Expeditionary Force during World War II. And if that wasn't a big enough accomplishment, he would go on to serve as our 34th President of the United States. Victory gardens first became popular during World War I and then again in World War II. People on the home front did something incredible by joining a nation during a stressful time and providing a sense of purpose for those planting their own victory gardens. Today, there has been a resurgence of victory gardens in America, again, providing a sense of being useful, of being productive, and of being patriotic. So, what is a victory garden? Through our program today, we will be exploring the big ideas of how victory gardens provided a sense of usefulness, productiveness, and patriotism throughout America. What, where, who, when, and why victory gardens were a thing, and the power of propaganda using words and images. Are you ready? Let's go over some background information about victory gardens. Listen for the what, where, who, when, and why of victory gardens. During both World War I and World War II, many resources like food were scarce or hard to find because America needed to focus on getting soldiers the resources they needed to win the war. During those times, the American people were encouraged to grow victory gardens, which would ensure that everyone on the home front would have access to nutritious meals, which in turn allowed for the large food suppliers to send food to the boys fighting in the war in their K rations and C rations. It provided a morale boost by allowing Americans on the home front to help in the war effort. The American people wanted to help in any way they could and quickly began to plant victory gardens anywhere they could find space. These gardens provided families with nutritious foods throughout the year and allowed the large food suppliers to send their food to the troops fighting the war. By growing victory gardens, the American people were showing their patriotism, which means love of your country and nation, and boosting their morale during a very challenging time of war. Take a look at those people gardening. They've got all of their tools and equipment. Hey, the what? Victory gardens were grown to help win the war. Where? Anywhere that land was available, sometimes even in just a big pot. Who? The American people. When? During World War I, World War II, and today. And then why? Planting a victory garden shows patriotism and it boosts morale. Now, we need to have an understanding of a few vocabulary words before we move on. The first one is propaganda. Now, how many of you have heard of this word before? You don't usually hear the actual word, but you hear a lot of propaganda. That's what is used. It's information used to influence an audience to further an agenda or a plan. Language and imagery are often used to produce an emotional response. Where do we see and hear propaganda used today? If you watch television, there's propaganda every few minutes, every time there's a break in a program. Do we have any responses? Okay, commercials are the biggest propaganda that we hear today. They're trying to talk you into buying a product and telling you that if you buy this product, you're going to be, it's going to be just wonderful. And sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's not necessarily. Patriotism, though, is a sense of love, devotion, and attachment to a homeland, and a connection with other citizens who share the same feeling. Can you think of a time when Americans are patriotic? Something we do during the day or certain time of the year? Maybe you put something outside your house, the 4th of July, or maybe you wear certain clothing that shows you're patriotic. Okay, well, I'm thinking of the flag salute, or singing the Star Spangled Banner, or maybe you know someone who wears a uniform and they love our country so much that they're willing to join the military to protect us. 4th of July is a really good way of showing our patriotism. I'll bet you some of you are patriots also, because a lot of us love our country. We're going to check out 3 propaganda Victory Garden posters from World War II. Now let's pretend like we're researchers or detectives, and we're really going to look at the details of this poster. What images do you see? There's some silhouettes there. Big basket.
Will sees a basket of food.
Excellent, excellent. What else do you see? Are there some words on there that you have to read?
Amy says, food is ammunition. Don't waste it.
Good. Well, who needs to use that ammunition? The people on the home front aren't using it. Can you think of who might be using that ammunition?
Our soldiers?
Exactly. The soldiers use the ammunition. The food is ammunition. And can you see the images in the background? We've got what flag is there?
Candace says the American flag.
Right. And that's another way of showing our patriotism. So who do you suppose those people are in the background?
Warriors?
Yeah, good idea. Warriors, soldiers, military. So we don't want to waste our food here because they're over there fighting to defend us. And if we don't have enough food to stay healthy while they're gone, they're going to be sad when they come home and find out that we didn't take care of ourselves. Propaganda then is information used to influence an audience to further an agenda. Let's look at another one. Wow, this looks entirely different. The first one was really dark. What do you see in this poster? Is the person a soldier using a rifle?
Candace sees the words shoot to kill.
All right, now let's think about this. This isn't on a battlefield over in Germany. Where is this person?
Kim says her backyard.
True, true. In a victory
Garden.
garden, yes. And what is it that she is shooting? There's something there on that red thing. Take a look.
Grasshopper.
A grasshopper, some kind of insect, and it's trying to eat her prized tomato. So instead of shooting bullets, she's shooting bug spray to protect your victory garden, is what it says across the bottom. All right, so she's serious. Now, this is a fun one. Take a look at this. Some of you might be familiar with this kind of image. Does anybody recognize the characters?
Superman.
Ah, what's he carrying?
Vegetables.
You betcha. There's two other characters. I bet somebody knows who they are.
Batman.
Batman, and his sidekick is named
Robin.
Robin. Now, see, all three of these images are meant to get us all fired up. I want to plant a garden too. If Superman's going to raise cabbages and carrots, I want to also. And then Batman and Robin, boy, Robin looks like he's been working pretty hard. He's hot. So all of us want to be able to produce food to keep us all healthy. Posters weren't the only way propaganda was used. Newspapers were also a great vehicle to share to the masses a particular point of view. Charles Austin was a very talented African-American artist and created propaganda drawings that were published in many African-American newspapers throughout World War II. And it's really incredible how powerful these drawings are. Even without words, you have a good sense of what the message is. And let's remember, the war took place in the 1940s, and there were some things missing in their world that we have now. Today, we can get our information through texts, through 24/7 news programs, lots of programs on TV. Those things weren't invented yet. So their choices were to listen to the radio, to read the newspaper or magazines, or to see propaganda posters like at the grocery store or the post office. All right, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the second one. Okay. Those are both different than the propaganda posters. What's the first thing you notice that's lacking in these two images? The other three had lots and lots of color to catch your eye. But if these are going to appear in a newspaper, newspapers would be black and white. So these images don't catch you with the color, they catch you with the images. All right, now hopefully you have one of these sheets in front of you, or maybe your teachers are starting to hand it out. If you don't worry, just follow along on the screen, and I'm going to go back a slide so we can see the bigger images there. All right. We're going to analyze these Victory Garden campaign posters. Let's start with the root vegetable. What is taking place in this cartoon? What do you see happening? Does anybody know what that symbol is that the vegetables are targeting? It's associated with the enemy in Germany. It appeared on a flag. The flag was red, and this would be in dark black. Anybody responding? All right, that cross on the bottom is called a swastika. And prior to Hitler adopting that image, it was used as a good luck symbol for the American Indians. So he took that because it represented the Aryan race, that perfect race that he was trying to promote. So it says, all Americans urged to grow victory gardens. And by providing food for the people on the home front, then the manufactured food could go to the soldiers to keep them strong and help them fight the war and beat Hitler. And that's what that symbol is there. Okay, let's move to the other ad. And remember, this was drawn by an African-American artist. So you can see the images represent that population. America needs your strength. Plan nutritious meals. A well-fed nation is a fighting nation. And the United States was pretty lucky because the only fighting that we had on our soil was when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on the island of Hawaii. So the mainland wasn't ever bombed or had the fighting destroy buildings and fields. So that's why it was so important for us to take advantage of that by producing food as much as possible. Can you see the image? We've got the strong family in the forefront. But what do you see in the background? Who's marching along in the background? Do we have any suggestions?
Candace says our soldiers.
Right. So the people in the foreground are staying strong and growing food. And it looks like maybe the man is going to work in a factory. He's got his lunch pail with him. So I can make that assumption that he's going to be a worker as well. And the little boy's being patriotic. He's got his image of, he's got his airplane there. I'm sure he could probably tell you the names of all the airplanes too. Okay, so let's move on. Hopefully you at least thought about all those things and maybe you even wrote them down. Very good. So we have looked at propaganda posters and propaganda drawings in newspapers. What's another way to get the message out? Remember, there's no streaming, YouTube coming on at this time, no cell phones. And now America wasn't the only country planting victory gardens. There were other countries involved in the war. The Dig for Victory campaign was set up by the British Ministry of Ag during World War II. That's in England. This is footage that was taken and turned into a propaganda ad to encourage people to plant victory gardens. Public service broadcasting put a new spin on the old propaganda footage and added their own music and talkovers. Now, as you watch this short film, I want you to think about how it makes you feel. What emotions are coming to the surface?
Have you joined the ranks of this great new army? Young men are doing it. Young women, children, old men. They know food is just as important a weapon of war as guns. Using the right tool for the job and using it in the right way. Think for victory. Think for victory.
Like, that was a very good video. I think I picked up a couple of gardening tips from that. What emotions did you feel while you were watching that? Maybe some of the things you didn't understand. Why were the people walking along on top of the dirt? Does anybody know what they were doing there? They had already planted their seeds and they were tamping that down. So the seeds were firmly put in the soil. And the next thing they would need to do would be to water it. And then the seeds would start coming up. Do you think that was easy work, what those people were doing? No, it's hard work. And so sometimes people have so much fun planting their garden, and then when it gets hot, they forget to go out and continue doing the hard work. So it was very important that these people followed through on what they did, because that food was so important. Now, victory gardens were popping up all over America. People found a way to plant. Take a look at these images. There's 3 different ones. See if you can figure out where are these people planting their gardens? Let's start with number 1. He's so proud of his, he's got the word victory on a sign there. Where is he located? Any ideas? Take a look at the vehicles. Look behind him.
A campsite?
Exactly. Maybe you've seen trailer parks in today's world when you're driving around. Well, this is a trailer park. It looks like they're camping, but he's going to be there long enough that he's planting his garden. So later on, he can harvest the food. Now he's got some little envelopes there. I can't really see what he's got on it, but he's got it marked. He probably has a tomato or beans or something in that area. Let's look at number 2. That's quite a bit different than the first picture. Where do you think that garden is?
A city?
Yes. I bet your first clue were the buildings in the background. Yes, so it's probably a fairly large city. I don't think Abilene has any buildings that big. And remember the time frame, they're not using tractors or little John Deere mowers or anything. They're using horses. And I always think it's interesting to see the clothing. In the previous video, we saw ladies dressed up in their dresses out working in the garden. That's how people dressed at that time period. Women didn't wear slacks and jeans and shorts and things. All right, let's look at the image number 3. Where is that garden? Looks like he's been pretty successful.
His front yard?
It is. He used to have a pretty lawn in the front that he had to mow. And so instead he dug it up and planted those seeds and watered them and fertilized them. And pretty soon he's going to be able to pick the produce. Good job. All right, now it's your turn to create our own poster caption. We've looked at several examples of how propaganda was used to encourage people to grow victory gardens. We looked at posters, drawings, and a primary source film from the time period. Now you're going to create a caption for one of these 2 images. Okay, look at the screen. There's number 1. Here's number 2. Which one grabs your attention the most? Remember how propaganda is used. You need to use words to create an emotional response from the viewer. It should be brief, a title or a sentence, nothing more. All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Think of a caption for one of these posters and be sure and let us know so we can hear you read your caption or type it in the text box. I know I already have my favorite one, but I want to hear what you have. The first lady looks pretty happy. I don't know about the second one.
We have for number 1, smile for victory.
Oh, that's a good one. So she's making it look like she's enjoying it and it's easy. Good job. Anybody else?
Ooh. Bonnie and Thomas have food for months.
Oh, I like that one. Food for months. That's great because it looks like her garden was very, very productive. Give it maybe one more comment. Anybody else have one? A word that comes up on number 2. Have you heard the word abundance? Maybe she used too much fertilizer and her crops grew so big. Now think about that. I can identify some butternut squash and some pumpkins, potatoes, cabbages, apples. So she must have had an orchard also. So all of those foods are going to feed her family and probably some other people in the neighborhood as well. Now, schools and kids all participated and they showed their patriotism. We have 2 different schools here. Let's do a little bit of comparison. What's alike about the 2 and what's different about the 2. Let's look at the first image. Where do you think that garden is located? They're at a school. It looks like maybe they even have school uniforms. Their little hats are all the same. So where do you think that school is? Look in the background. Anybody jump in?
In a city?
Yep, it's in a city. And what part of the building is that garden located?
The roof?
The roof. Now, I look at that and I think, they haven't planted any seeds yet. They're just getting the soil ready. How about the other picture? Where do you think that's located?
In the country?
It looks more rural, doesn't it? Because they've got a lot of land around them. And it looks to me like they've already planted and now they're trying to keep the weeds out and maybe even getting ready to harvest. So everybody everywhere tried to join in the participation. So victory gardens were planted all over the United States. We've seen where people planted victory gardens on rooftops, front yards, windowsills in urban areas. Everyone wanted to participate. Look at this image. Where do you think this garden is? Can you spy a famous landmark in the background? Maybe somebody knows what that special building is. It's always painted white.
The White House.
It's in Washington, D.C. Yes, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was the president during World War II. He encouraged the American people to keep victory gardens. His wife, Eleanor, took charge of this project, and the victory garden was in the front yard of the White House. And to top things off, they even kept a small herd of sheep on the White House lawn. Isn't that funny? All right, so the White House got in on this too, because they wanted to set a good example. Now, I have a few artifacts that I want you to look at that go with victory gardens. I'm not going to tell you what they are. Use your detective researcher eyes. What is that first image? We can see a 3D image. What do you think it is?
Pickles?
Well, not yet. What do you have to grow in order to get pickles?
Seeds?
Seeds, and they grow into
Cucumbers.
Cucumbers, right. And as soon as you pluck those cucumbers from the vine, you put them in vinegar and salt and some other seasonings, and then they turn into pickles. And you need to use them, use one of these on the right-hand side to preserve those pickles. What do we call this? It's an old-fashioned jar of some sort.
Candace knew it was a mason jar.
It's a mason jar. I bet you read the label. Okay. So once the produce was grown, it only lasts a short period of time before it starts to spoil. So in order to eat that food during the winter months, the homemakers needed to preserve those things. They would process the cucumbers with the spices and everything and put them in this jar and boil them in a great big canner for a given amount of time. And then when they took them out of the hot water, there was a rubber seal up at the top, and that jar would be vacuum sealed. And just like you buy things in the grocery store today, when you open that jar, it kind of pops. So that's what would happen with these jars. So cucumbers could be canned and turned into pickles. You could do that same process with green beans and potatoes, any of the things that you grow in your groceries, in your garden. Now, today, America's fighting a different kind of enemy. We've got a war going on in Ukraine, and it's disrupting our commercial food supply and will continue to do so for an unknown amount of time. Like the past, something that we can do is to fight back and take responsibility for growing some of our own food, giving ourselves a morale boost and being patriotic. So take a look at these images, and maybe you've experienced this when you've gone to the grocery store. Your favorite kind of cereal isn't there anymore because it hasn't been processed right now. Or maybe, I know I couldn't find Fresca for a long time. Well, they just weren't manufacturing it. All right, so this is the same need as in the 1940s. Another problem that's the worldwide citizens came up against was COVID. That provided a wake-up call about having locally sourced food. Instead of waiting for the producers in California and Florida to send food to us, we want to adjust, buy local. We've adjusted our mindset this past year, a couple of years. We don't have as many options at times, and we don't get to always do what we want when we want to. But we have adapted and learned to overcome, just like they did in the war years. Sometimes we have to sacrifice for our country and for ourselves and for our neighbors. I challenge you to plant your own victory garden this spring. It's time. I've got my bean seeds already. Go small or go big, big plot, little pot. There is nothing more rewarding than plucking a fruit or vegetable from a vine that you grew and eating it right then and there. Victory gardens provide a sense of usefulness and productiveness. They did that back in wartime, and they can provide that same sense of usefulness and productiveness today. So plant your own victory garden and enjoy.
Candace has a question for you.
Good.
She says that her cat poops in her garden. Is there something that we could deter the cat from doing that?
There are several things that can help. One of the things that I've read is you can sprinkle cinnamon around the plants, or hot chili peppers, because that irritates the noses of the animals. You can go to your local extension office that comes through the university in your area, and they will have all kinds of suggestions, things that you can do that will scare the animals away, because deer is another problem too. And rabbits like to come and eat your vegetables. So they'll have suggestions for you. I know that, but on the other hand, that's a little added fertilizer. So maybe just dig it in a little deeper and maybe it'll help the plants grow. Any other questions or comments? No? Well, this is Earth Day. Get outside and get your hands dirty. All right. We'd like you to join us for our next celebration. It's going to be use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. And that looks at the beginning of a slogan that we use today: reuse, recycle, reduce mindset. So I do hope you join in. Thanks again. Hopefully we'll see you later.